Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome. And I'm joined here tonight by a good friend of mine. And now, Matt, what is your official title?
As of right now, I'm just a structural pest control technician. Basically, that means I'm licensed in general pest control, and I'm also licensed in termite. They're two separate licenses here in the state of Texas. And basically, what they both allow me to do is structural allows me to treat for basically any sort of general invasive pest in your home: ants, roaches, rodents, rats, mice. Help keep wildlife out. And then termite allows me to inspect for termites, tell the resident or owner of the property, hey, you have termites, and then I can quote it, graph it, and treat it all by myself.
Okay, so the reason I'm having you on is, I've been kind of talking to you about my little venture that I've been on recently, and we've
Right.
always had mice, rats, we've always had all of that stuff out
Mhm.
at my parents' place. And actually, when I was a kid, when I would sleep at night, you could sometimes hear them in like the air ducts. You could sometimes hear them romping around and walking around in there. And then when we would catch one in a trap, or when we would put decon down, which
Mhm.
I want to get your thoughts on all of this different stuff here in a minute. But when we put decon down, they'd bring it back, they'd eat it, and they would die. And then for a
Right.
couple days, the smell would go through the air vents, and we would know, oh, a mouse died or something died because we could smell it.
Oh yeah.
So the reason I wanted to have you on tonight is just to kind of pick your brain on a few different things that's going on. So I've been talking to you about some of the traps that I've been using. The white plastic Tomcat press and set. When I say these are the basics, Matt, these are
Mhm.
the basics. I think I sent you a picture of it on our Discord chat recently.
Yeah. I'm actually looking at it right now.
Yeah, these, when I tell you, dude, I broke one. They're so cheap and so fragile.
Yeah.
I do also have a pack of the wooden base Tomcats, so those are more akin to what you're used to getting when you used to buy like the 2-pack wood base ones in the store when we were younger.
Right.
So I also have those. And then you told me to order another brand, so I picked those up recently too. But the first thing I want to start with tonight is what you've seen in the pest control industry last 5 years.
Oh man. So unfortunately, I can't really speak for the last 5 years. I've only been in the industry myself about 2 years. I've been a licensed tech for about a year now. However, I was trained by two individuals that have a combined knowledge and experience of about 22 years. And I'd like to think of myself as a very fast learner when it comes to this, and I've learned a lot. So as far as like when it comes to rodent or correction, rat and mouse control, they kind of go hand in hand. They're very similar. The only real difference between rats and mice is really how much food they eat, the size of the droppings, obviously the size of the rodent in question, and then probably the most important thing is going to be the type of trap you use
Yeah,
when it comes to rats and mice.
absolutely. And I actually think I was kind of picking your brain on that a little bit too, because you recommended this J. Eaton, what is that, 409 or something? Or what are they?
Yeah. So it's the JT Eaton 409
Oh,
Jaws
JT.
plastic mouse traps, and you can use solid or liquid bait in there. And these guys are good for both your common roof rats and your Norwegian rats, and then your roof, not roof rats. I'm sorry, your house mice and deer mice.
Now, you're telling me, now hold on now, because I want to make sure I got this right. Because I've seen in my life, are you ready for this?
Absolutely.
One rat. One. Now,
Really?
I'm sure you can't say that. I have
Yeah, I'll
seen
be honest. Yeah, I can't.
I have seen a single rat in my life, and I shot it with a 22
Mhm.
off of a bird feeder. We used to have a rat that would come down to our bird feeder when I was a kid, and my dad kept setting this trap. It was a black plastic trap with one of those wire snaps, and I actually want to talk to you about that again in a minute. So
Sure.
that's important that we bring this back up. And he had it set. This rat got the food, set off the trap, and did not get caught in the trap. The
Yep.
rat never came back to this trap. Can you explain to
Yep.
me why that is, Matt?
Okay, so yeah, that's actually an excellent question. I kind of have to dive into some personal experience as well
Go
with
right
the
ahead,
industry that
please.
I'm in.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. So, prior to me being licensed tech, I was an apprentice, like we all have to be, and I typically serviced apartment complexes. And unfortunately, the nature of apartment complexes, invasive pests are the issue, and so are rats and mice heavily. Um, so let's say Tom and Betty call me. Hey, so we think we have some rats in our apartment. We saw some droppings here. We have some, gnaw marks on some of the food items, and there's like some pieces of the particle board missing from the cabinetry over here and whatnot. Okay, cool. So I'll go in, I'll inspect. Hey, there's definitely signs of rat activity here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some traps down. And what I'll tell them after that is, hey, whatever you do, please do not buy your own traps and set them. So the issue with that is, and why I tell tenants that is because let's say, for example, they go to the store and let's use the Tomcat press and set, the white ones we were referring to earlier. Those realistically might kill a rat or a mouse. I've seen a lot of these store bought traps fail.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I've had instances where my commercial ones that I purchase, I've had them fail before too. It happens to everybody. It's part of the game, unfortunately. So if a rat or mouse survives an encounter with a mechanical form of trap, whether it be store bought, commercial bought, it doesn't matter. They will never go near one again because they are a lot smarter than people give them credit for. And I'd like to kind of go into a little more detail on that real quick.
Well, I think isn't that part of the reason we do, or scientists do, all these different like brain tests on mice and rats, whether
Yes.
whether it's a maze or whether it's a memory puzzle or something, because we're so fascinated by how intelligent these creatures actually are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't remember where the article's at, but there's even one of a rat learning how to play Doom, the original version.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, and to take it a step further, let's say, for example, my mechanical traps aren't working, my sticky traps aren't working. All right, I have one last thing I can use, and that's actual poisons or anticoagulant type, quote unquote, poisons to remove the rodent population from a structure or from someone's unit, which is a absolute last resort thing. Nothing's working.
So why is
Let's
that? Before we continue, why is that a last resort?
Sure, absolutely. So the most common method that my company employs when it comes to quote unquote poisons with rodents and mice is anticoagulant baits. And I actually sent you a link to one
I
that we
saw it. Yep.
use. Yeah, let me find it real quick and kind of get into what that is. It's an anticoagulant, so meaning that it's a
It stops blood from clotting.
precisely, yeah, and it's a chronic type poison, meaning they eat it, and then eventually they rupture blood vessels as they squeeze through holes and like scurry around and they just go to sleep. The problem with that is that they can die anywhere in the building, and then you have a rat or a mouse smelling up your apartment or multiple apartments for days or however many die, and it's almost impossible for us to find it. And even if I do find it, most apartment complexes will not let me just cut it out and remove it unless I am 100% sure where it's at.
Yeah. Then they're seeing that, like I was telling you with mice at our place.
Mhm.
So okay. So mice and rats are intelligent.
Yeah. Oh,
When
so my bad. I forgot to finish something. Circling back to the using poison in someone's home like that.
Yes.
So let's say, for example, a rat or mouse happens to be in the area and they kind of see me in the area where they're coming in through, or in an area where they've eaten a lot of food at, like say your pantry. So, and I would never do this, but let's just say for simplicity's sake that I do put some of this anticoagulant bait in a secure container that you can't get into, but mice and rats can, in the bottom of your pantry. They'll go, oh, hey, there's food in there. And then after, everyone's left and it's calmed down, they'll go in there and they'll take some back to where they're hiding. And then they'll have one of the younger rats or mice eat some of it, and they'll like kind of watch what happens. If they die immediately, they won't touch it. If it takes a couple days, which 90% of anticoagulants and these different forms of poison, like the decon you were telling me about,
Yeah.
the decon has a 3-day kill time. My contract soft bait has about a 5 to 7 day kill time. And because it doesn't kill them immediately, they're going to think, oh, hey, this is cool for us to eat now. We're going to keep eating it.
So you actually want something like contract that has a little bit longer kill time.
Yes. Yeah.
That's,
Precisely.
that's so interesting to me, right? You think about, because we think about humans, right? The way we watch
Mhm.
out for each other, or we're supposed to,
Right.
yeah. Well, these days I wonder, but the way we're
Hmm.
supposed to watch out for each other. And then you look at how that culture is even present in the animal kingdom, where they bring it back and they have a younger member of the whatever.
Hmm.
What's a gaggle of rats called?
To tell you the truth, that's the one thing like I haven't learned.
So anyway, the youngest member of the gaggle of rats, and now we have this food that we brought back. We're gonna let them eat first. It's kind of like when a mother deer, or when a doe comes in with two fawns and lets the fawns go and eat first. And it's like, well, they didn't get shot, so maybe I won't. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
that kind of thing. That's crazy how smart these animals are, dude. So
Oh
they
no, it
will.
absolutely is.
So we kind of talked about these poisons and some of this stuff. So these traps, right? Like you started talking to me the other day. I'm like, okay, bro, I just want to set some traps and catch some mice. I want to get some
Hmm.
fun content. I want to feature you. I mean, this is fun stuff. Like I'm enjoying this. I'm having a good time with it. My first
Absolutely.
first night out, I got two mice. Like this is a
Hmm.
banger, bro. Like
Oh yeah.
I'm having a good time with it, right?
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden you start telling me, well, you should use these traps. These are really reliable. I've caught like 15 in one of them. Like they're awesome traps. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do that. So why are you so JT and why are you so high on this brand? Why have you've kind of championed this brand, Matt? Give me a little bit more about it. Tell me a little bit more about your experience with it.
So when I first started getting into the rodent removal part of my job, I was first introduced to the classic what I call Tom and Jerry style traps, the wooden one with a little metal latch
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
has that like snaps, and you see it in cartoons and movies, and like oh look at me, I caught it on my hand, I'm just gonna take it off and call it a day. Um, So I prefer the JTs because they're easier to set. They're smaller. I can get them into smaller areas. Like for example, if there's a hole in the sheetrock somewhere, I can put it in there, set it, and then it's right in their path that they're going to come in through. And
Yeah.
then all I had to do was come back, however many days or weeks later, check on it, pull it out. If there's a deceased rodent on it, dispose of it, get it out of the unit, and then I can reset it in a couple seconds. Versus the Tom and Jerry style traps, which depending on who you ask, a lot of the old timers in pest control, they're gonna say, give me Tom and Jerry over these JT Eatons because they trust them more. There's less parts of failure.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not a fan of them because they're big, they're dangerous, and they're a lot easier to set off than the JT Eatons because I have caught my hand in the Tom and Jerry style ones, and the first time it happened, it caught my left pinky, and like it didn't break it thankfully enough because I had a glove on and it kind of like slipped a little bit, but my pinky was swollen for a couple days and it didn't feel too good.
So, I just want to clear it up for the people that do watch, for the one or two people that do watch this content. I want to clear this up. You're not talking about the basic flat wooden spring traps you can buy in the grocery store when you say Tom and Jerry style trap. Now you're talking about something with a little bit more bang to it, right? You're talking about something with a little bit stronger spring.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one you'll find in the store, I want to say is about. Oh, I haven't looked at one in a long time, but they're about 4 inches long, maybe two and a half
Yeah.
inches wide.
Yeah.
Those guys, they're not going to cause any serious harm to you because these companies that make these publicly available traps, they know that people are going to mess up and that they're going to slip and
Yep.
they're going to be scared and they
Yep.
don't want that liability on themselves. Now, the ones that I get commercially, and you can buy these too, um, these guys snap with about 400 pounds of force, if my math is right. And that's about how much force it takes to potentially break a finger. Um, in fact, one of my previous coworkers, who I never got a chance to meet, he actually caught one of his fingers in one of these traps, and it was a solid hit on a knuckle, and it broke his finger.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just to kind of clear that up. Well, so we were talking about this the other day, and I told you, I said, how come when I go in the stores now, I see all these plastic jaw traps, whether it's the Tomcat, the JT, and whatever it is, I see all these plastic jaw traps, and
Mhm.
I really don't see a lot of that wood base. I mean, they're there still, but I don't
Mhm.
see as much focus on that wood base wire and spring trap like I used to maybe 15 years ago or so. Can you explain to me why that is, Matt?
It kind of goes hand in hand with my personal preference or them a little too. Like I said, safety, because like I said, your average individual who's never used one of these before, they're gonna try to set it, they're gonna accidentally, hit that little yellow lever, and then it's gonna snap their finger. The wooden ones, they tend to, like, if the wood gets like wet over time, that tends to wear out pretty quickly. These plastic ones aren't as susceptible to wear, but like I said, they have more moving parts.
Yeah.
And the plastic ones are usually smaller, more ergonomic. You get less of them in a pack 9 times out of 10, and they're a little pricier. But
Oh yeah.
I'm a personal fan of these guys. I think I've only had one fail on me, and that was because that was my own personal fault because I had kind of had it angled a little bit instead of having it right up against the wall where the business end is facing the wall, and it hit it at an angle. It got its I think its right front leg caught in it, and rats and are tenacious. If they want off that trap and they're like barely caught on, they will do what they need to do to get themselves off of it. And unfortunately, it did, and it got in the tenant's stove, and we couldn't get it out. And unfortunately, the complex had to give this tenant a brand new stove because there was now a dying rat in it that we couldn't get out.
Yeah. That definitely. I mean, man, it sounds like pest control and pest removal is a well. I mean, let's be real. It sounds like it's a full time job,
Oh yeah, no,
Matt. For lack of
it
better terms.
Oh no, it absolutely is. And the one thing that I tell all tenants, and I am one of those technicians that I pride myself on being as knowledgeable as I possibly can be to number one, make these tenants feel comfortable in their home when the stranger comes in and starts putting, these traps that can, hurt them or hurt their animals or
Their pets,
children.
yeah, or kids, yeah.
Precisely, yeah. And I'll be upfront honest with you. Pesticides in certain quantities are dangerous and they're inherently dangerous as a whole, but the more I'm educated on how to properly use them on how I can keep you safe, the more comfortable they're going to feel with me. So I will be 100% transparent with them and not lie or sugarcoat anything. I'll be 100% real with them on everything that I tell them. And that's how seriously I take my job, and I pride myself on that specific way that I approach my job. And the unfortunate bit is that a lot of pest control companies will not put in the effort to train their technicians to the level that myself has been trained to, my coworkers have been trained to, and that my boss has been trained to, because they don't want competition, and they don't want them to, when they get a certified applicator license, which is when you can start your own business, to, branch off and take everything they learn to start their own business. So they give them such inefficient training. It's here, take this stuff, do this with it. I don't care if you do some semi potential wrong stuff with it, just do your job. And it gives the industry a bad look, like we're people who don't know what we're talking about, or like we're just quote unquote killers of things, and that's all we do. When
Interesting.
when when someone takes pride in their job the way we do, you get, number one, you get return customers, you get happier customers, we get our job done efficiently and effectively. um 9 times out of 10, I can get rats and mice gone out of your home in less than a month, completely gone, and
Interesting.
prevent them from being able to get back in after the fact. So much so to the point where you won't even notice, or not, sorry, not notice, you won't have another fear of having rats or mice in your home again.
Interesting. Interesting. That's really impressive. You and I kind of we talk business every once in a while, and you'll call me once in a while and say, "Hey, how would you approach this with the client, or how would you do this?" And I always got that impression from you that you really took things seriously, and that you really followed through on stuff. And I think that's important, right? Because when I do a service call, my brother and I were talking about this earlier today, as prices go up more and more and more. And when I do a service call, whether it's for water, electricity, heat, sewer, it doesn't matter. But whenever I do a service call, I'm always leery. Am I being fed a line of baloney here? So, and pest control for me, right? Well, for me, it's like, well, throw some traps down, kill a couple mice, whatever. But I mean, you hear some of these horror stories, right?
Oh yeah.
About people that have apartments that are just whether it's even like with my own like wife with her cockroaches in her apartment that she stayed in the last place she was living. Like, dude, that is demoralizing to come
Oh
home
yeah,
to
it
that.
absolutely is.
So, I I guess my urge would be you get what you pay for. And if you
Yeah.
pay for a good service, usually you're going to get a good service, especially if it's with a reputable company.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I'm trying to
absolutely.
say? Um, so my first question is, do you have anything else you want to say about pest control in general?
um,
Let the
it's
let the let
definitely
the pest technician do his or her job, basically.
yeah, and don't be afraid to ask questions because if your pest control tech is confident in a trade, is knowledgeable, and is willing to go above and beyond like any service industry worker to help you remedy your problem, yeah, then yeah, ask because like I love when tenants ask me a question because again, like I said, I can answer it and then I can put their mind at ease that they are in good hands. Like for example, I had a tenant actually tied to a rat related issue. This was actually my very first like long term trapping issue. Um, so they call me, hey, we think we saw a rat in our unit. All right, we set some traps. I got them, I got the traps near where they said they saw them come from. I found the point of entry. I had like six traps in this area throughout the kitchen, one behind the fridge, one behind the stove, three in the area of where they were coming in, and then two under the sink. And actually, not even a week later, I think it was like 2 days after I had left and put the traps there, we got an emergency service call from that unit. Hey, we caught a rat. So I go back, remove it. I go back the next week, no activity. I go back for their second follow up, no activity. I go back for the third one, no activity. So we were good to go. No one else in the building reported rat issues. Fast forward 4 months later, same tenant, same unit, same problem, same point of entry. They actually chewed through what the apartment complex had patched. So I'm like, all right, well, let's start it again. But this time, after I put the traps in there, I did what's called a wildlife exclusion inspection. And I basically what that means is we check out the entire building, top to bottom, every possible nook and cranny that we believe a rat or mouse can get in through. We are going to seal it. This way they can't get in. Or if they do try to get in, it's going to be so hard, they're going to be like, all right, I give up. I'm going to go on. So
I'm
we
gonna
did
go to
all
the next
that.
apartment down the road.
Yeah, precisely. um, so I did all that, and I this was one of the what I call a failure on my part. And like I was doing the trapping right, I was doing the follow ups correctly. We did the exclusion right. I had the bait stations outside the building full all the time. We had traps in the attic. I had 24 traps in the attic, and in just this one unit, I caught 13 rats.
That's crazy.
Yeah, over the course of about a 2 month period, plus the other like five or eight I caught in the attic space. And at the start of it, the tenants said that that they were really frustrated that they that there were so many rats, and I said, well, just I said from person to person, I'm not coming to you as a technician, I'm coming to you as adult to one another to another adult. I understand you are frustrated. I am frustrated for you. I hate that you're having to deal with this, and you shouldn't. All I'm asking is give me 3 weeks. And this is before we started escalating and getting worse. I said, give me 3 weeks before you decide to cut your lease. If you are willing to put that faith in me and let me try to remedy this problem as fast as I can, and just let me do my job and just trust the process, I will get this taken care of. By the time it was like the third or fourth week, I think I had caught about my 10th or 11th rat in there. And they were like, hey, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We think you did an amazing job. We've had pest control at previous complexes in the past with rodent issues, and they were nowhere near this level of honesty, upfrontness, and care to their job and knowledge. And while we really appreciate it, and it's not a pest control issue, it's more now an apartment complex issue because of the way management is kind of handling the situation on our end, not your end. So thank you so much, but we're going to go ahead and cut our lease. And they ended up going to another property owned by the same company. And I actually went over there and I started doing courtesy follow-ups for them to make sure that they were good and they didn't have any rodent issues or any insect-related issues. And for my first time there, I said, I am so sorry for how many rats that I caught in your unit. Like I genuinely felt like I failed them. And they said, no, no, you didn't. You did your job and you made us feel comfortable and you made us feel like we could live in our apartment freely despite the issue that was going on.
So,
And
so when you're telling me you're catching all these rats, if you had everything sealed, where were they coming from, or were they already inside?
they were already inside the
Oh
attic
my
space.
god,
And
that is
yeah,
absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. So with mice, they reproduce faster, but they have smaller litter sizes.
Mm,
Rats reproduce more slowly, but they have larger litters.
yeah. Oh man, that's
And
terrifying.
unfortunately, this was kind of the issue with this. Um, but that's the main reason why I love my job so much is the gratification that I get out of genuinely helping someone remove some form of serious invasive pest issue from their home. And it's
Yep.
not like a, oh, I helped you, I'm gonna hold it over your head. No, it's a, I genuinely helped this person
Sleep at
get
night.
their sleep at night, get their peace of mind back, be able to enjoy cooking, enjoy, having people over, friends and their loved ones, and just enjoy their home again.
Yeah.
Because what I've learned is that when people get an invasive pest of whatever type or whatever various level of severity, they lose that peace of mind. And if I can help them get that back in any way, shape, or form, even a little bit, then I've done my job right. Especially if I've removed the pest problem within the time frame that I've told them I'm going to get rid of it.
Awesome. Awesome. So, I've got a project coming up. Can I tell you about it?
Absolutely, hit me.
So here it is. It's an old barn, probably 40 years old.
Hmm.
Sand floor, tons of machinery in it,
Hmm.
and wood piles in it, and shelving in it. And I
Hmm.
bought a 12 pack of them JT Eatons at your recommendation. I'm going to load them up. And they have big sliding doors on this barn.
Hmm.
And it has a open space under these sliding doors. This is how old this building is. So
Gotcha.
I mean, we have an opportunity for some critters and some creatures to get in.
Right.
So it's a square, rectangle, whatever.
Hmm.
It's about 65, 75 feet long,
Hmm.
45 to 60 feet wide. And when I tell you it's old, it's old.
Right.
Matt, how would you approach placing 12 traps in that?
Mhm. So the first thing I would check for is see if there's any established food sources inside the barn, which I doubt there's going to be, but I would check anyway, just to see if there's like any grain in there, any sunflower seeds, anything that you might be able to use in addition to your traps. So this is going to sound really funny, but we actually use peanut butter, creamy peanut butter, and crunchy peanut butter. Um, on our traps, and believe it or not, that actually works really well. Oddly enough, so does bananas. I've learned.
I use Nutella
Yeah,
and
and
Lucky Charms, both of which
yeah,
have worked.
yeah, and absolutely. And ultimately, whatever you find works best for you will work. But if there's like an established food source, like let's say a rat gets into my apartment and they're eating my Cheez-Its. If I throw Cheez-Its on my trap with the peanut butter or Nutella or whatever other substance I decide to throw on there, that'll double my trapping efforts because it's a familiar food source to them.
Interesting. I
Yeah,
was
and
wondering about that. I was wondering if I should be maybe putting some secondary food source even near the trap, around the trap.
yeah, I would in small quantities. You don't want to give them too much
Yeah,
because if you give them that
they won't go to the
secondary
trap.
food source, yeah, they won't want what's on the trap. They're going to want what you've been putting near the trap.
Okay,
Um,
fair.
and in addition to that, another big thing is placement. And this isn't what a lot of people are aware of, and I don't know if packaging tells them on publicly available rodent traps. Is you want the business end of the trap, so where it clamps down to catch the rat or mouse, you want that up against the wall
Why?
or up against whatever object you got going on there. So,
Because it sounds to me it sounds counterintuitive.
and in most instances, you'd be right. So rats and mice, they use their whiskers to feel around because they have very poor eyesight. So they stay up against the wall because it's safe to them, it's familiar to them, and like I said, they feel safe, so they're going to stay up against it unless they're like spooked or predators after them or they see you. Then they're going to dart off in whatever direction they can get out of or go in to get away from you as fast as possible.
So is that why my traps that are all out in the open are not catching me anything? The ones that are out like in the middle of the barn on the floor are never getting.
Most likely, yeah, most
So if
likely,
do
absolutely.
you think I should face the jaw of the trap towards the inner, like towards the wall, like along the inner wall of the barn?
Yeah, yeah, I would, especially if there's like a a hay pile
Yeah,
near one of the walls. They're gonna
because
go in that direction for again general safety.
because the first mouse I caught was I had my trap right up against a box on top of a
Mm,
wagon. So I had it right up against a, right up against a object. And the
mhm,
second mouse I caught was right up against the back wall of the barn. Again,
mhm,
the mouth of the trap was up against the thing, but I didn't know any of this yet. And the third trap I had set, which didn't get set off, was just underneath or was on top of a boat trailer, and it was just out in the open, just sitting out in the open.
yeah. Now,
Hmm.
in that instance, so let's say they're getting into the boat trailer, you can throw a couple traps on there, and you may end up catching one because if I'm not sure what this boat trailer looks like, but it may have some form of like holes in it or cracks and crevices where they may be able to squeeze into to hide. So throwing one
Interesting.
on there isn't a bad idea.
Interesting.
Um, so oddly enough, when it comes to trapping in attic spaces, we kind of go the opposite route, counterintuitive to what I just said, because when they're up in the attic space, they don't really have a whole lot of predators up there, and there's not a lot of people up there, so they feel a little more free to run around. And plus, they
Interesting.
can hide in insulation. So when we put traps in the attic space, we put like 12 plus traps up there, and we set them up in like a 360 circle around the entrance to the attic space.
Hmm.
Um, and we get quite a few captures that way because it's a mass quantity, get rid of them as fast as possible kind of thing.
Interesting.
Um,
Interesting. That yeah, I was kind of thinking about that because I told my wife, I said, so here I got one on the Lucky Charms oat, not the marshmallow, and I've got
mhm,
this beautiful marshmallow in the center of a trap. Thinking, man, anything looking for something sweet's gonna grab this, and they still haven't touched it. They wouldn't touch it. So we had
mhm.
Lucky Charm oat and Nutella, and the more you talk about putting it up against an edge and putting it up against a wall is up, the more God, dude,
Yeah.
I mean, the evidence is there, bro.
Yeah, and also with it being up against the wall, you're guaranteeing that this is going to sound morbid for those of you who don't like this kind of thing. It's going to force their head into it. This way,
Yeah.
it's an
Well,
instant
both
humane.
both mice were head first in the trap.
Yeah. See. Yeah. There
So,
you go.
so we've got this square barn, older sand floor. Talking about food source. So I've got a wood pile. I've got a trailer. I've got old farming equipment. I've got another wood pile, and I've got some
Hmm.
old shelving, and I've got some old pile, like some old baskets and stuff. So what would you do with 12 JT Edens?
Okay. So the only thing is, I'd have to see the trailer to really kind of get a good idea of what that looks like for optimal.
It's in the center of the barn, and it's about the actual trailer platform is about 3 feet off the ground.
About 3 feet off the ground. Does it have any? Is
Tons
it
of stuff on it.
is it
Tons of stuff
uh,
on it.
ton of stuff on it? Okay. Um. So yeah, I would maybe for the trailer, I would throw one on the tongue, or even one near the tire, one or two near the tires. I'm assuming it has tires, or is it just
Yes,
on
it does.
rims?
It does
It
have
does.
tires.
Okay. Yeah. So I would put one or two, or one on each side near the tires, and just put it up
Should I put
against.
it at the base of the tire up against them, or should I put it on top of the tire?
I would put it at the base.
Okay.
Yeah, I put it
So
at the base
on
of
the
the tire.
ground. On the ground.
Yeah, yeah. And then for the wood piles, so in the wood pile aspect, it's going to be kind of hard to see if they're actually going in there, but you can kind of look for like small gnaw marks, any sort of like trails of food, if you smell urine or if you see any droppings in a specific area near these wood piles.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Again, put it with the business end up against the wood piles and put it near where you see droppings or where if you can see like a visible trail that like you can see rats or mice have been jumping up and like running up and down, put it near that because it's a familiar it's a familiar route to them, and you put that trap again, like I said, business end up against the wood pile, you're almost guaranteeing that they're gonna like get down. Oh, food done.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One thing I did forget to touch up on, I briefly touched up on it but didn't finish, was when a rat or mouse survives an encounter with a mechanical trap. What we have to do after that is use sticky traps.
Yes.
And again, that's one thing that I absolutely despise doing because, contrary to popular belief with pest control, when it comes to wildlife, we only lethally remove rats and mice. And we do it as humanely as possible. That's why we make sure our traps are functioning properly. If I have a trap that won't set properly after like messing with it like 5 or 6 times, I won't use it
Do you throw
because
it
I don't
away?
want to. Yeah, I'll throw it away, or I'll see if I can fix it. And then if I can fix it, I'll reuse it. Cool. Because with sticky traps, and I think everyone can kind of see where I'm going with this, you have a very high possibility of rat or mouse getting stuck, and Some people don't pay attention to that or are oblivious to it, and then it can starve to death. It can die of it can die of dehydration. And ultimately, once I show back up to their unit to collect the sticky trap with the rodent on it, I have to take it outside and euthanize it. And I've had to do that 4 times. And I love animals, I really do, and I don't like to do that. I hate doing it. It's this, and I won't go into detail on how I do it. I just it's something I don't like. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm so adamant about tenants not using their own mechanical traps aside mine.
You
So
want to get them on the first try. You want to get them in mechanical trap. You do not want to have to go sticky, and you certainly don't want to have to go poison. Is that what you're telling me?
yeah, if I can control it and keep it mechanical and keep removing the population that way, I will go that route 9 times out of 10.
Interesting. Very interesting. Ah, hey, we're all human at the end of the day, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely,
And they
and
may be pests, but they're still living creatures.
yeah,
So
precisely.
yeah, I'm with you. So you'd put them at the base of the wood piles, base of the tires. What about on that section of shelving? Do you think I should put some on the different levels, or do you think I should stay at the base of the shelving, maybe along towards the back side where it runs along the wall?
The backside along the wall, absolutely. I would throw one on the maybe the first and second shelf, just one there. But instead of putting it facing toward the back of the shelf, I would put it toward facing toward like the left or right side that like keeps stuff from falling off.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
when they climb up there, that's the first place they're gonna go, unless
yeah.
there's like holes in the back of it. But I doubt there is.
There isn't. No, there
There
isn't.
isn't? Okay, so yeah, I would do one flanking each side of it, up against the wall, and then the one or two up on like the first, second shelf level, and put it, like I said, up on the left or right side of
This
it.
is this is probably 6 years ago now, 7 years ago now. We have a big ice fishing shanty on this
Mhm,
trailer, and we took it off and we opened it up because we were going to set it up and see how it looked because we were going to
mhm.
use it. And the actual shanty was all perforated with all kinds of holes. And I said, Merv, what's going on? What is that? And he said, well, mice and rats. And he was right because we had about 3 mice run out of the shanty.
Mhm.
So I definitely think there's some rodent infestation going on in that second barn. And I think my traps, because I have 7 traps currently set, and in the last
Mhm.
24 hours, I haven't caught a single mouse over at the other barn. But I
Right.
think I think I think some more intelligent placement is going to be needed before I can make any statements about whether or not I'm doing something right or wrong, because I definitely think I have them in the wrong place.
It's very likely. Like I said, it's oddly enough, placement of where your traps are at is a really big thing in pest control, and that's the
Yeah,
one thing that I always make sure that I have correct as humanly possible. The only thing that makes it hard is when I can't find a point of entry in someone's unit, because then I have to play a guessing game as to where they're going to go, look for
sure.
droppings, looks for a sign of where like food has been dragged. I have to get a little creative sometimes and like put them under dishwashers or put them under drawers in the
No,
empty space down
yeah,
there sometimes.
I hear you. I
Um,
hear you.
and that's when it starts getting a little more difficult, a little more creative. But I like it because it pushes me to learn more, and it pushes me to help learn how to do this even more effectively. This way, the next tenant it's even faster, and that's what I'm all about is learning my trade.
Efficiency.
Yeah, learning my trade as efficiently as I can to help everyone to the best of my abilities.
I love it, Matt. I love it. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on and taking some time today. And I would definitely love to feature you here on the channel again. If that's something we can work out, that'd be great. But do you have any closing thoughts here for us on pest control, specifically rodent control, mice, rats? Any last words of advice to anybody that maybe is struggling with something like this out there that might be listening?
So the best piece of advice is I can tell you is and I've had residential customers tell me this and even commercial. I didn't really want to call pest control because I didn't know what to expect or anything. Just don't be scared to call us. We're human too at the end of the day, and we know that this is your home, and we want to help you get your home back, get your peace of mind back. Even if you just want a consultation, most pest control companies have free consultation. They'll show up. Hey, what's your problem? Give me A through Z. All right, this is what we're gonna do. This is what the solution's gonna be. This is your price up front, which is what I do. And ultimately, taking care of these things by yourself, if you're not educated properly on it, can make it worse, or you could potentially get hurt. And that's what I really want to avoid is a solution or is an issue getting blown out of proportion more than it already was, and then it's even more expensive at the end of the day. And do not be afraid to ask questions, because if your tech can't answer these questions, either ask for another tech or call a different company.